Got my eyes straight ahead, got my head in the game. With the red light on, I'm just waiting for the change. Keep my head down low.
Okay, my name's Jay Fallon. Welcome to the Slippery Slope. So, good old QPS always keep me shaking my head. Anyway, we'll get straight into this story. Came up the other day. I think when you can see that something is just in a shambles, and people are just grasping at straws. They know something is not in good shape. It's not working out the way that they really want. They know that they're making a mess of a situation, and they just keep coming up with harebrained schemes, just trying to, just lashing out, just grasping, grasping for any idea, hoping against hope that maybe this is the one. This is the one that fixes the problem. When in reality, the problem is that person or a specific group, but they don't want to change. They want to be able to blame everyone else, everything else. This is what I think is happening with QPS, Queensland Police Service, my former boss. Let's have a look at this story together. Look, I see so many problems. I actually just got back in. I was on the highway traveling back home, and I saw the sign, the sign about earning 100K a year from day one. And this girl in a singlet kind of looks like she's trying to flex or something like this. And, from day one, you'll be earning 100 grand. And like I said before, the type of people that you're going to, if that's all you're going to focus on is how much money you can earn from the start, well, then you're going to get the wrong people. You're going to get the wrong type of people. If you're going to get the type of people that all they really care about is money, well, then wait, you can't wonder why things are going wrong in a couple of years when you're dealing with officers that are concerned, that are, knee deep in corruption. Anyway, I'm talking about all this because of the recruitment issue. So obviously, QPS, Queensland Police Service, have had a recruitment issue for the last couple of years now, and it is really coming to a head this last 12 months. We've seen intake having to be cancelled. We've seen them trying to draw people from overseas. Obviously, that's wrought with just so many issues, because they've just opened the door and said, hey, just no matter what country, no matter what ideology you come from, if you've got policing experience, come to Queensland, we'll have you. And then, like I said, talking about that ad for that, the Queensland Police Union, they'd done their own research and they said, oh, well, the younger generation, this is what they care about. They care about money and lifestyle. Like I said, if that's what you care about, is all you care about is money and lifestyle, you're just making the problem worse. So the Guardian has reported Queensland Police spruik more inclusion and diversity, but new intake tells a different story. There she is there. The woman who won't admit that she is probably 80% of the problem, but hey, won't say too much about that. Less than a quarter of recent recruits are women, with First Nations people and those from diverse backgrounds also underrepresented. Earlier this month, the Queensland Police Commissioner, Katarina Carroll, stood in front of the state's largest ever cohort of police recruits and said strategies to attract new officers were clearly working. You know why this is the state's largest ever cohort? Because they are losing so many officers every week. Every week. Around 15 people a week. 15, at least 15 a week are pulling the pin on the job. 15 a week. So they can have the largest cohort. The other day they were celebrating because they had this cohort of 85 or whatever had gone through. But you're losing 50, you're losing 15 every week. And it takes 6 months to just get them through the academy. So they're still going backwards. They're not, anyway, keep going with the story. Carol says, Katarina, we're committed to getting the right people, but data obtained by Guardian Australia has prompted concern that the makeup of the major recruit cohort represents a clear failure by the Queensland Police Service, QPS, to address culture and diversity issues raised by last year's landmark inquiry. Remember that? You remember that? The landmark inquiry that happened last year, where they said that things need to seriously change because QPS has some major issues, some very major issues that go back to the core of the organization. And the commissioner said, yes, we will change. That's what we're all about. But it's easy to talk about change, but when it all comes down to change, when the rubber hits the road, and you see how hard it is to actually change, well, that's where it really matters, and that's where they're failing, it seems. Anyway, but data obtained by Guardian Australia has prompted concern. So women make up less than a quarter of the new officers. I'm not sure if I agree with all their assumptions anyway, but still, these are things that they do need to fix. So women make up less than a quarter of the new officers. Just on that, I think if you want to get 50% women in the job, I think it's a dangerous move. I think you will be putting a lot more officers at risk. That's what will end up happening. Anyway, First Nations people and those from diverse backgrounds continue to be significantly underrepresented when compared to the general population. The Commission of Inquiry, which reported its findings 12 months ago, found that a failure of leadership had allowed sexism, misogyny, and racism to take root within the QPS. This is the main issue. The failure of the leadership it's failed significantly in the last, at least the last decade. The previous commissioner had failed miserably, and he'd been trying to, can't say too much about that anyway, in my opinion, but I think they were trying to cover up their tracks, the leadership group attached to that previous commissioner, when it comes to the 50-50 recommendations, trying to cover up their tracks, allegedly. Just my opinion. What can I say? And it's just continued on with this new commissioner. So that failure of leadership, and getting back to this, they never wanted to change. They never really wanted to implement the changes that they needed to make, implement the leadership changes that they need to make. That's a lot of the problem. Continuing on, one of its 78 recommendations due for completion the same day as Carol announced the success of the major recruitment drive was that the police service review its recruitment strategy to ensure that it attracts applicants, from a diverse range of backgrounds and experiences, and from diverse culture and linguistic backgrounds. Now, listen, it's all good to talk about having diverse range of backgrounds and experiences. But if this is the only thing you're going to be focusing on, and you start losing focus on getting the right people for the job, people who are intelligent, people who are not just there because they have maybe a propensity toward violence, people who actually understand. It's not just about intelligence. You need intelligence, but you also need some wisdom. Intelligence and wisdom are far more important when it comes to that job, and you need to be able to be able to hold your own, physically and mentally. Going on, of the 586 recruits at the police academy, 144, 24.6 are women. According to information supplied by QPS, only 14, or 2.4, come from non-English speaking backgrounds. 13, 2.2, identify as First Nations people. The proportion of recruits from each group is less than half that group's proportion of the wider Queensland population, and in the case of women, substantially below the level in the existing QPS workforce. But that's, women see where it's at. I think women are starting to see where it's at with policing. If you want to attract intelligent women for the role, you need to be able to advertise to them. Intelligent women don't just go, oh yeah, 100K a year, I'll get on board with that. Come on. This is the problem. They're advertising to the lowest common denominator. That's what they're doing. Kerry Carrington, an associate professor from the University of Sunshine Coast, whose research is focused on women-led policing, said the intake numbers were worrying and that recruitment was critical to enacting the sort of cultural reform demanded by the inquiry. You want the best fit for the job, and that means a diverse police force that represents a wider range of people. It's fairly important that the police force reflects community diversity. And they're right, it is. Robert Monet, I'm not sure how to say his fellow's name, but he's a former sergeant and the first identified Indigenous person to be selected for the QPS Elite Tactical Unit, said he believed Indigenous people did not feel culturally safe to join the organisation. I'd have to slightly agree with that. Inclusion and diversity are just words and fallacies, said Monet, I'm not sure, sorry, buddy, how to say your last name, who resigned last year when I resigned, saying his attempts to address racism have broken me. Look, he accused QPS claims to value diversity of being performative. In September, Carroll stood alongside the state human rights commissioner, Scott McDougall, to announce a review of diversity and inclusion in the service. Now, Carroll standing beside the human rights commissioner, human rights went out the door when the jab came in. She stood up. She showed that she could not give a rat's about human rights, because as the paperwork that I received, they gave all the paperwork stating, hey, human rights state that we are not allowed, we're not supposed to be able to force you to do this, to undergo a medical procedure. And then you flick the page over. However, basically, to sum it all up, screw human rights and we're going to do whatever we want. Go forward a year and a bit, and it's like now she's standing alongside the state human rights commissioner, but they really don't care about the human rights. And what I will say about this Indigenous chap, former sergeant, talking about he'd attempted to address racism. He says that it's broken him. I made a complaint about a few issues, and I thought I didn't really accuse or say it was racism, but I did raise the question why certain things had happened to me, or why things had kept getting shut down towards me, and yet other people would do exactly the same thing, or they put forward the exact same idea, and hey, it was all lauded. Yep, that's a great idea, and yet when I put forward the idea or something, completely shut down. And that happened several times. But I was just told, well, hey, you didn't make a complaint at the time, therefore it's your fault. You sit there going, wow. I didn't really feel comfortable making the complaint at the time. And it was one thing, and then I thought, oh, maybe it's just me, it's just the way it goes. And then when another thing happens, you go, oh, okay, it's a bit coincidental. And then when another thing happens, you go, oh, okay, come on. But by then it's like, oh no, you should have made the complaint then. It's your fault, Jason. So I get what he means when he says, he's attempted to address racism. There are other things that I attempted to address, and you kept getting shut down, and you're like, it breaks you after a while, and you just think, well, anyway. In response to questions from Guardian Australia's statement from the QPS listed various measures that it had taken to increase diversity since last year's inquiry, including holding recruitment events in rural and remote areas, working from TAFE Queensland, policing program aimed at First Nations people, creating an Indigenous recruiting program in August, and planning a similar multicultural program. Despite these measures, Carrington said that based on the latest data, any efforts to increase diversity had clearly not succeeded. It's because people are still not happy with the leadership team. That's what they want to get rid of. That's what they need to get rid of. If they want real change, they need to change the leadership team. While Carroll has acknowledged the importance of recruiting a more diverse workforce, the QPS has mostly framed its recent recruitment efforts as an attempt to arrest falling applicant numbers and increasing attribution. Oh, can't even talk properly. Attribution rates. We have invested so much time. See, this is the thing. They are losing so many officers, basically. All they're trying to do is play catch up. They can't address the problems, or they feel they can't address the actual problems. For one, things are clicking in their head. They're going, we are really the problem. We are the ones that they want to get rid of, but they don't want to do that. Obviously, they don't want to lose. She doesn't want to lose her extremely high paying job, but they don't want to admit that they are the problem. And then they're too busy trying to play catch up. They can't really start to address the other issues that they have. We've invested so much time. We're passionate in making sure vacancies are filled. That's the problem. It's all about just vacancies. That's all it is. One element of the campaign was to offer incentives to encourage overseas officers. Monet said international recruits won't understand the cultural landscape of what it looks like within our state or from region to region. That is so true, mate. And you think someone from, let's just say China, okay, someone from, okay, I won't even go there. No, go back. Someone from China comes here, police officer, and you think they want to go up to Kawanyama and be a police officer in their first year or their second year when after you finish your first year training, and you go, well, you can supposedly go anywhere. You reckon they want to go right up to Cow, out to Mount Isa? Do you reckon they're going to understand what's going on? They're going to understand the region? They're going to have any thought about why these different people groups do what they do? No. State government also funded the Queensland Police Union of Employees to run its own recruitment advertisements. This is where I'm talking about with the money. The union's billboards feature people wearing high-vis workwear and highlight the $100,000 salary for junior officers. This is the problem. Like I said, if that's all you're pushing, you're going to get what you're looking for. People who only care about the money. The head of police union, Ian Levers, he was heavily criticised for writing an opinion piece opposing the state's moves to treaty. Who cares what his thoughts on treaty are? And he goes on to say, so we went to young people and we tested it. And what do young people care about? They care about money and lifestyle. I've got to stop there with this rubbish. Like I said, this is the problem. If all you're going to do is advertise and try and get people who only care about money and lifestyle, that's what you're going to get. People who only care about money and lifestyle. In a couple of years' time, you're going to wonder why you've got this trouble with officers who seem to have a penchant for doing little things, naughty things on the side. You're going to wonder why complaints have gone up. Harassment complaints have gone up. You're going to wonder why people are making complaints because they see favoritism towards certain people, and yet they do the same thing and they get busted on it. These are the kinds of things that happen when you're trying to go for the lowest common denominator. You're just looking for people who just want money. And it's, they do need more diversity in that in some things. But if all you're going to do is just focus on diversity just for the sake of diversity, it's just going to bring about more problems. But like I said, at the end of it all, what they really were pushing for at the inquiry was they'd said that there was a failure of leadership, and this failure had allowed sexism, misogyny, and racism to take root. But if you're not willing to change the leadership and the structure, you're never going to get rid of this problem. But hey, what would I know? I'm a former police officer. But that's my opinion. Queensland Police Service has some issues, and I don't think they're going to fix it anytime soon while you still have the current commissioner and her leadership team with her. My name's Jay Fallon. Thank you for listening to The Slippery Slope.
They just fuel a desire that will take me higher.